Yeah, cool. So cool. Thanks for making it down to San Antonio.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of a workout before I came here and excited to eat after this to fuel. Other than that, things have been good. What about you?
I'm good. Yeah, it's been beautiful in San Antonio. Sun, Texas sun, something beautiful about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a decent time to be here.
Yeah. How have you been lately, though? How's it been? How's the holidays been? How's the new year been for you? No worries. Back up.
Yeah, I'm just watching the visuals. Sorry, guys. Keep going.
This all got edited. Shout out to Captain Sinbad for helping us.
Been good. All things considered. Set new goals for this year. I been going through some difficult things regarding relationship, but other than that, I felt really fulfilled with my work. I'm excited for what these next few months have in store.
Yeah, I was really excited to get you on because you are somebody I think that really embodies the philosophy of break the formula. Mm. Do you think so? I know we just talked about it earlier today.
Yeah. You explained what that formula was to me, which is the typical kind of route that we're taught. We're taught that we are supposed to listen to what we are told, to follow a strict set of guidelines on how to live life, and this specific guideline will produce the most happiness and fulfillment, and we find out too late that it often does not. So yeah, I think I am lucky enough to have figured out quite early on in my life that I didn't want to be within that formula, and that formula was not optimal for the type of person I am. And breaking the formula is important, but you know, maybe no one said this yet, but I understand why some people want to stay in the formula, and maybe that is the best thing for them. But for me, no, definitely not.
And when did you find that out about yourself, that you wanted to break out of the formula or chart your own course in life? Because you started from a very young age, I feel.
I think it was midway through college. I was really debating whether I even wanted to finish college or not at that point. I had been doing YouTube for a few months, and I mean, I only had like 100 or 200 subscribers, but I really wanted to like drop out and put my full focus into YouTube when I realized how much more enjoyable it was than everything else I had learned about what I should be doing in my life up until that point. So yeah, it was around midway through college is when I started thinking about like entrepreneurship or like just creating my own thing.
That's awesome. I also created a YouTube channel in college, which I didn't continue.
What happened?
I went to job in finance and then just kind of stopped it. But I had a fitness YouTube channel that still exists today called Nathan Strength. But
nice.
Yeah, it's got like 3,000
I'll
subscribers.
check that out. I'll leave a comment.
One of my videos is called My Transformation. It's a fitness YouTube transformation video. It's 300,000 views.
Those do well.
I was happy about that back then. But
nice.
What is your background, Cole? Like, where did you come from? Where did you grow up?
I am from Buffalo, New York, which, if you don't know, it's like the westernmost part of New York, almost the complete opposite end of New York City.
Right on the Canadian border,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Where I come from.
So we were talking about an hour away from Toronto. I live 10 minutes away from the border, which is pretty awesome to go there, especially when we were kids and we were legal enough to drink in Canada but not America. I used to go over the border, which was nice. So I'm from Buffalo. My background, other things, played a lot of sports as a kid, played hockey, soccer, baseball, a little bit of football. So I've always been into fitness and athletics. I went to college initially for computer science. I was going to major in computer science, but then halfway through I switched to cognitive science.
And was this in Buffalo or somewhere else?
Yeah. So I went to University at Albany, actually, my freshman year of college. And then sophomore to senior year, I went to University at Buffalo, and I graduated from there with a major in cognitive science and a minor in computer science. And I was doing YouTube, but it wasn't making me any income at all. And so I was still set on pursuing just a typical job and that was kind of my backup plan, which wasn't really a backup plan. It was the plan back then to do something along the lines of like UI, UX design. But luckily, around the same time I finished college, I was really starting to pick it up with YouTube and starting to make a little bit of money in content creation, because my Instagram actually was starting to like get a lot of followers. For a long time, my Instagram had more followers than my YouTube, and I was making money off of like fitness coaching, which is what I did. And then, there's the whole story of how YouTube finally started to blow up, and my brand has since evolved from there, but that's a bit of the background.
So you started off doing Instagram content on fitness and doing fitness coaching through that.
That's what first blew up. So it's interesting back and forth. I started with YouTube, solely self-improvement content on YouTube. Then I started an Instagram a few months later and switched my brand, my personal brand, to like fitness, and specifically like vegan fitness, because I went vegan at that time and I wanted to make a whole brand around that. And I was more passionate about like lifting weights and showing people how it could be done on a plant-based diet. So I started, the big thing when I first started in like 2018 was every other day I would post a high protein vegan meal idea on Instagram. And this is when Instagram didn't have reels. It was photos and like lots of tags in the caption. Like that was the meta back then. And did these every other day, along with like the other post every other day was just like me shirtless or some shit and like motivating caption, right? And I posted every single day for like a whole year, I think. And specifically the vegan meal recipes really blew up. And that's when I like was getting like thousands of followers on Instagram. And then I eventually started taking fitness clients for like vegan fitness coaching. And then fast forward 2 more years to 2020, and my YouTube channel, which is what I wanted to blow up more than anything, did finally start to gain some traction because of one specific video, which was this no-fap, cold showers, journaling for 90 days video. And I went from like 1,000 to 10,000 subscribers and finally got monetized on YouTube after 3 years. And that's when I was like, okay, let's just go full into self-improvement again, like how we started. And I shifted farther and farther away from vegan fitness content to now not doing any of it officially, like not even on Instagram. Because for a while there, I was still doing like vegan meal ideas up until like last year. So now it's just fully self-improvement. But yeah, my brand has kind of evolved over the past 4 years, 5 years.
So why did you post that video on the 90-day challenge and the no-fap and all that? Like, was that something that you had been doing yourself for a while and then you decided to share about it? Or was that because the algorithm was pushing that type of content at that time?
Well, I think the algorithm...
Because I think a mutual friend of ours did similar and it worked.
Yeah. I think the algorithm is what influenced me to start NoFap. And then I was like, okay, let's just make a video out of the experience and then also throw in the other good habits I've been doing, cold showering and journaling. And yeah, just my YouTube's always been about sharing my experiences of life and what I've learned from them. And hopefully that experience and reflection and lesson can positively impact somebody else. So that was what was going on at that time of my life. So I'm like, okay, let's just make a video out of it.
Interesting. Where does this content come out? I've seen some themes in your content and your videos, particularly about kind of like being an outcast, both yourself and for the viewer. Mm-hmm. And is that something that you felt, for example, from your childhood on? How was your experience in middle school, high school, things like that, growing up in Buffalo?
I think high school is when I really started to realize, like, I don't fully fit in with the popular kids. I was friends with all of what was considered the popular kids in my high school, and we went out partying and did really stupid things like driving around, literally egging people on the street out of a car. And that was one of those moments where I was like, yeah, it's fucking hilarious. And it's just ridiculous, and it's fun to be there, but like I could never get myself to do it. And I'm not trying to be like morally superior or anything. It's just like I wasn't that type of dude to, you know, fuck around and want to hook up with girls all the time. Like I tried really hard to convince myself that I was that person so that I could fit in. But the more the years go by, the more I realize it wasn't me. Like I could tell like I didn't like myself that much at that time. And part of it is because I was trying so hard to be someone I was not, just so more people would like me. So it took a long time to accept that, yeah, like I'm so glad I had those experiences and everything, and I'm still friends with those guys, but I never fully felt, I felt like the one guy who was a part of that group who was kind of like separate and didn't fully integrate. And there was a few reasons, apart from like the fact that, you know, I now realize that I always wanted to do an unconventional path to success, like building my own brand and business, but also like, you know, there are certain sports teams that all of those guys were on, like our high school baseball team, they were all on it and I wasn't. And it's just little things like that. Like they all had a little bit different interest in me, you know, fantasy football and stuff like that, like sports they were more into. And I was into playing sports, but not watching them as much. And they knew way more about sports than me. So it's just like all those little things now I realize like, okay, I never fully fit in with those guys. Yeah.
Do you think that it was because you chose to chart your own path, or do you feel like you just couldn't fit in because you're just different?
I don't know. I don't want to say I'm different as if I'm like, oh, I'm better than these people. Because like I said, if the traditional path is what you feel you truly want and you're fulfilled, then by all means do it. I think it's a little bit of both. What you said is, I feel like I couldn't fit in, but also because I couldn't fit in, I wanted to chart out my own path. I guess they mutually influenced each other.
Interesting. And then from that point on, so then you went on to, you said college, you were doing computer science,
Yep.
cognitive science. Why did you choose those majors?
So I actually really enjoyed programming. Once I got towards the end of high school, I would watch Java learning tutorials on YouTube when they were like first spawning on there. And I would stay after classes, I don't know, every Thursday or something with my physics teacher who knew programming, and he would like teach me how to code games or do a little bit of coding with games. And I was like watching like the creator of Minecraft stream on Twitch, his coding streams. It's like I really liked programming and getting that immediate feedback that programming gives you. Like you write in some code and you immediately get the results of your code, and it's very addicting, can get addicting. It's fun and it's challenging. So I thought that was the route I wanted to do, is like something within programming, some sort of software development. And the more that I went through college and realized, okay, well, there's also this thing called back-end development where you are managing the data of everything on like websites and apps and stuff. And that's when it got really fucking hard.
So this was in first year college, second year?
It was like second year when things started to like get serious. Like data structures and algorithms. Anyone who is taking computer science in college listening right now will understand what I'm talking about. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I was like cheating on all my tests and everything, cheating on the homeworks. It's like I didn't even know what I was doing at that point. It's like clearly I'm not passionate about this anymore. Part of it was laziness, definitely, because I was just a lazier person back then. Like now I look back, I could have finished it, but
right.
Also because like, yeah, I realized more what coding was, the more that there was to coding other than the type of programming I wanted to do, I guess. And I just couldn't see myself finishing it and passing and being super passionate about it. So I decided halfway through college, halfway through my sophomore year, that's when I was starting to get into like spirituality and self-improvement, that cognitive science sounded like a really good major. It's this interdisciplinary major where you're taking like psychology, philosophy, some computer science classes in there, neuroscience. You're learning about like how the mind works and actually practical things that you can apply to your life. And so I did that, and I really enjoyed my last 2 years of college, a lot of those classes, more so than computer science. So that's why I decided to take that route. And then that's when I was like, okay, I know a little bit of computer science and cognitive science. These are things that are used in UI UX design, which is like user interface design, designing what people see on websites and apps. I thought that was really cool. And that was going to be the plan if YouTube didn't work out.
So for some of the viewers here today, you know, they see you've got over 600,000 subscribers on YouTube. I think you're doing decently well. You're making money from the channel. Decent, right? You moved to Austin from Buffalo. You've got a lot of stuff going for you, right? Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, no worries. So you've got a lot of stuff going for you. But why don't we just take a step back to that moment when you were in, I guess, Albany, and you were going through these classes and you're realizing that maybe becoming a computer scientist was not the career path you were going to be able to take because of how difficult it was, or laziness or whatever at that time. Like, how was that for you? And you also mentioned that you went into spirituality and you started exploring those types of things.
Right. That was sophomore year, though.
Yes.
At
Yes.
UB. Yes.
What's that?
That was sophomore year at UB.
Okay.
And I started getting into like spirituality and like questioning computer science major.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
yeah. So in Buffalo. Yeah. So my question is like, well, how did you feel at that point? Did you feel like you kind of had everything figured out, or were you kind of like,
no,
you were totally like, oh my God, like, I don't know what I'm doing.
right.
Yeah.
No, I think I was super confused, especially when I was like wondering if I wanted to do computer science or not. At the same time, I'm like,
did you feel like a failure?
a failure. Did I feel like a failure? I think I definitely didn't feel too great about myself.
Yeah.
I don't remember. You know, I didn't do enough reflection back then to remember what even my mental state was.
Right.
I just know I was confused, and that computer science, I didn't really want to do it anymore. I think this was when, yes, when I switched majors, I had already been doing YouTube for almost like half a year. And that was when, like I said, I was even considering dropping out. I think, yeah, that was a really confusing point in my life at that point. I just remember I didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah, I wasn't really sure what path would be the best for me or what I would like the most. Yeah, that's the biggest thing I remember. But I did decide to stay in college, which I'm glad I did, even though I don't really do anything with my degree.
Yeah, I've seen that pattern with a lot of people that are creators and entrepreneurs. There's a lot of them don't technically use their degree, but they might have learned from it. Did you feel like at that point, did you have like support systems? Did you have your parents, friends, or were you kind of alone?
I was dating somebody at the time, so
Yeah.
that was a bit of a support. I think everybody, she actually said, you know, I'll respect whatever decision you make if I was to drop out. But my parents, I'm pretty sure, telling me to not drop out, like probably not a good idea. And at the end of the day, I felt it wasn't a good idea to drop out. But as far as support systems go, yeah, it was my girlfriend. I think my parents have always been supportive, but maybe back then just, you know, they want what's best for you. They think they know what's best for you. And so they are like, you know, stay in college, you know, be safe. They want you to see you safe and succeed.
Very cool. So I want to hear the transition period quickly from graduating college. I know you were doing some content during college, and then to going full time into YouTube. I want to hear about that, and then eventually we'll jump into some of your content itself, which I find really interesting. So yeah, so how was that for you? Because you started making some content, you did some of the personal development type videos; those were taken off. You got Google partnership status, And then how did you go from that point to actually going full time into YouTube as a content creator?
So should we start like right after graduating?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So right after I graduated, it was still 2019. I believe at that time I was still working part-time as a busser. And then after a few months of being out of college, I quit that. And I was applying to jobs during that time for like UI, UX design.
And living with your parents?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. While still making YouTube videos as well. And that was just a continuous cycle, making like a little bit of money from coaching and like Patreon, like these affiliate links and whatever. Very small amount, not enough to move out until it was like March or April of 2020. So this is like almost a year later. And that was really a transformative period of my life. My girlfriend broke up with me. COVID happened. The most depressed I've ever been by far. This was my moment for me that we were talking about earlier at the house that changed everything for me.
It was the moment that broke you.
Yes.
That's my favorite question to ask people.
Yes. So that happened, and then I really started to put my full focus on YouTube, and that was when a few months later, mid-summer 2020, I made that no-fat video. It initially didn't get a lot of views. It did well, but didn't get a lot. And then in October of 2020, the month before No Not November, it started to pick up traction because, you know, people started searching that shit. And that's what got me from 1,000 to 10,000. And that's when like I could start taking YouTube full-time seriously. I mean, during that summer period, actually, 2020, like May of 2020, I think I missed this. I moved out of my parents' house because I was making enough with like the coaching specifically to move out and like pay for my rent and stuff like that.
How much were you making approximately?
Man, I don't know. It definitely was not a lot.
Not
it
good,
was, man, how much was I making?
Couple grand maybe?
Yeah, probably. It was probably a couple grand.
The good thing is I know Buffalo, and Buffalo is a lot cheaper than
Yes.
Toronto and New York and all these
Yes.
other cities. So
Oh,
that is
yeah.
a good thing
Yeah.
about Buffalo.
So
People
rent-
sleep on Buffalo. I think Buffalo's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
Side note.
No, it's a nice city. It's
no Austin,
it's
but-
decently cheap.
Yeah.
Decently cheap. Yeah, I moved out. Nice little apartment, renovated garage. It was really fun. And I was just grinding YouTube. And then we fast forward to October 2020. Go from like 1,000 to 10,000 subscribers in like a month. And then my YouTuber friends, actually, or one is a YouTuber friend. Funny story. A guy I went to high school with and middle school with at that point was making coding YouTube videos, and he was much bigger than me. I think he had like 50, 70,000 subscribers. And so that's like his full-time thing that he's focusing on. He posted a video every day for a year. Like, he was insane. And so he had, I believe, like just moved to Vegas with one other YouTuber who was also doing well, kind of within the programming space, Trend Black, and one or two of my other friends who went to high school, and they were living in Vegas in this Airbnb. And the one guy who makes coding videos, who did it every day, Nick, he reaches out to me. He's like, yo, come live with us in Vegas. We'll rent an Airbnb for like a few months, like a big mansion. We'll all live in it and just make YouTube videos. And that was when I was like, you know, that was a scary decision, but I was like, let's fully go into this. Like, being around other YouTubers and in a nice mansion in Vegas, like, that's like everything I ever dreamed of. And it would take my career to the next level for sure. So I said, absolutely, let's do this. And I moved over to Vegas. I think it was like November 2020, and only lived there for a few months in 2 Airbnbs. That whole story is just ridiculous. The amount of like drama and shit that went on, and the way we all separated, so stupid.
So in the end, you guys
Immature.
didn't all get along because everyone's
immature
egos.
disagreements and like egos got in the way about YouTube and other things. And that house didn't end up working out. but it was a great learning experience. And it was at the end of 2020, really, when like I got like my first sponsorships, and then AdSense was making like a lot, like a few thousand per month.
How many views, how many subscribers were you at that point?
It was like from like November 2020 to like December, like even a month or two, I went from like 10,000 to then 50,000.
Wow.
Like all those videos I had made
due to No Nut November.
Yeah,
much.
partly that.
Yeah.
And then I like some other videos blew up about the one that really blew up was like why men are weaker than ever. Just kind of on the same category as like NoFap and stuff like that. And that video really blew up, and all during that time period, people were then watching all those videos I had made for the past 3 years that had gotten like a couple hundred views. Now they're getting like thousands of views. So it's like people started binge watching my channel and realizing, oh, this guy's got pretty good content. And then they subscribed. So during that period, it's just like people watching tons of videos on my channel, tons of people watching tons of my videos. And so like the amount of views were piling up to like 1 million a month. So
wow.
Yeah, it's like everything started snowballing within a few month period. It's like my friend Zach that we were talking about, the obsession guy, he's a great
Zach Pogrobe.
Yeah,
Pogrobe?
he has a great quote. It's something along the lines of like it will take years and then it'll happen all at once. And that's what happened to me. It's like it takes years of eating shit, nothing, and then just your snowball moment, your breakthrough moment happens, and then just exponentially grows.
I think that's a great piece of advice or a great illustrative story for people that are just starting, whether it's entrepreneurship or content, is all of that work, that body of work you created, it had value. It just took a while for people to realize it.
Yes.
And it's very much
it's
like
all
that.
An investment.
Yes. Yes. So that's great. That is incredible, by the way. I think it's incredible. You were able to jump full-time into content creation pretty much out of college. You struggled for a couple of months or a year or so, but you were able to pretty much just jump out. You never had to work a 9 to 5.
Right. I'm super, super grateful for that. And living at home, definitely, like, that was the biggest thing. Like, if I couldn't live at home during that period, I would be fucked. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I was very fortunate enough and privileged enough to be able to do something like that.
So what happened after that? So you hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of 2020. It's COVID. You got through the breakup. You'd kind of gone to Las Vegas, came back to Buffalo, I'm assuming. What happened after that?
Yeah.
How was that for you?
So after that, channel was still growing exponentially. And then in March, I moved back to Buffalo, got an apartment it was like a 1-year lease. And that May, I hit 100,000 subscribers. That was like the big YouTube moment for me, where I felt like I made it finally in life.
Yeah.
That was a really special moment, getting the whole plaque and everything.
And that's when you went to visit Captain Sinbad,
yes,
right?
Yes.
In Minneapolis.
2021. Yeah, that was it.
Shout out to Captain Sinbad.
That was also a crazy moment for me too, because like I was watching his videos over several years, and you know, you think of this guy so highly on the internet, and a lot of I met other creators as well who I like looked at as untouchable during that time, and then you realize, oh, like, and that's obviously not an insult to any creator I'm referencing here, but like, oh, they're actually just normal people like me who got exceptionally good at something and did it more than other people, and that's why they're at the level they're at. And it made me feel like less of an imposter, but yeah, that's a cool moment to have, is when you like reach that level and then you're around people who you thought were like literally untouchable and like gods, and then you're like, okay, well, maybe I am actually capable of amazing things, because these are also just regular people like me.
How did you get in contact with Nikhil, Captain Sinbad, at that time? Did you reach out to him?
Man, who reached out to who first? I'm trying to remember. I think so. Tren Black, who was one of the people I was living with in Vegas, he knew Captain Sinbad before I did, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, I know Captain Sinbad." I'm like, "No way, I watch his videos." And that's when we first started talking, and it was through Instagram DM. And I think I had Nikhil on my podcast. I asked him to be on my podcast first, and he got on my podcast
virtually.
Interview, yeah. And then he mentioned that I could stay at his place in Minnesota, and I was like, hell yeah! Like, of course I'm going to take that opportunity. And then we met that summer, and that was super fun.
So how was that for you? So you spent time with him.
Mm-hmm.
Did you learn a lot? What was that? What did you guys do together?
I learned that he doesn't know how to uncan and strain beans, which was really surprising to me. Just couldn't open the can and then strain the black beans. He'd never done that before.
So he was human. You realized he
Yes,
wasn't a god.
Yes, that was a human moment. I realized we had a lot in common. I think we're born around the same time as well in March, right? And he had like trouble with sleeping issues, and I had always had trouble with sleeping issues.
I did not know that. I wasn't aware of that.
My life as well. We just had a lot more in common, personality-wise as well. And you get to see more of their personality in person. You realize they're just really cool people. It's also really cool to see the way he directs and his production quality. He has like a PA basically holding the boom mic as we're recording this small intro skit for his channel, and I had to act as like this crazy British dude who was played by Christian Bale, I think, in the actual movie. And I completely overdid it, but it's funny the way he told me that it was like a good over-the-top performance, and the way, like I said, just directing. It was cool to see that process other than just like a sit-down YouTube video. I think that, yeah, that was a fun part of that. And maybe around then, I don't know, I started thinking about like directing and like actual higher production quality stuff, because it was cool to see how much he put into his production.
What do you think has led to your success? Like you talked about, you started 3 years prior to even hitting 10K subscribers, and then you went full time into this right out of college. What do you think has led to your consistent success and growth in subscribers?
I think the biggest thing is just not stopping. When most people would quit doing what I was doing, because I mean, it didn't make me any money for 3 years, most people would quit. It's like, okay, this clearly isn't working out. Like I'm done. Something in me just told me it was going to work out one day. And I don't know, maybe that's that universal intelligence presence that we were talking about before this podcast. But yes, I just had this like gut instinct that YouTube is the thing I should be doing, and it's going to work out one day. So you shouldn't stop doing it. And I just didn't stop. I just stayed. I posted one video a week, and I made sure of it for years. And eventually something comes out of that, especially when you're really passionate about it. And each video, I tried to learn something new for that video and improve the video by 1%. And so I think that just iterated over time. You put in the reps so many times, more than most people, and you're going to be better than most people at that thing. So I think it was just not stopping, just doing it more than most people.
I was pretty surprised today when I was looking at your channel. I saw it said 452 videos, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Obviously, that might include some shorts. I'm not sure. But I said, holy, that's a lot of videos. That's a lot of videos.
Yeah. It's.
How do you come up with the videos? Is that a process you have, or is that just based on creativity and inspiration?
I've never really had a structured process on generating video ideas. I think I just try to live and experience as much of life as I can, and then reflect on those experiences and share a lesson. That's what the majority of my videos are. The best performing ones have been, I just tell a story about what happened to me and what I learned from it. So I think life produces a lot of great video ideas for me on its own if I just experience life enough. But then also, like, I'll just randomly get a thought about a video idea spontaneously, and it'll happen when I least expect it, and I write it down immediately. I think that's the most important thing is when you have an idea, write it down. Otherwise, you will lose it. Absolutely will lose it. And so I've had just like a backlog of ideas because every time I have an idea that pops up randomly, I write it down. And that's my process, really. It's not really a process at all.
How many video ideas do you have in your inventory, your backlog right now, would you say?
Not many, honestly. Sometimes.
So you might run dry. You might run dry.
Yeah, I have before run dry. And in those moments, it's just like, I think of something. Just like, okay, like feeling that pressure to make a video, it almost like forces me to produce some sort of idea. Or I'll try to like get inspiration from other kind of self-improvement related content I consume. So I'll just like watch a few videos or something and be like, okay, how can I bring my own perspectives into this?
Fascinating. So you said you went to moving into your own apartment in Buffalo. You'd scaled up.
Mm-hmm.
This is after Las Vegas, right? And then now.
No, that was before Las Vegas.
But you said you went back. You signed a one-year lease.
And then I went back.
You signed a one-year lease. Did you stay the full year?
Yes.
Okay, so you did a full year. You started blasting out content.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Were you having fun at that point or no? Were you just stuck in Buffalo just doing were you actually enjoying your life or no?
Man, I think I was making the most money I had ever made.
How much on average would you say?
I don't know. I think that year I made like a little over 100K.
Pretty good. 2 years out of college, year or two out of college. Yeah.
It was good.
And working for yourself.
Yeah. But
living in Buffalo, it's not that expensive.
No. But you honestly, you'd be surprised.
It's going up,
like,
Getting COVID.
My first apartment was like $800 a month, and that was a renovated garage. And then this apartment was like $1,200 a month.
Okay.
And like, think about it. This is like 2021, and Buffalo, and it's literally like on the west side of Buffalo, and it's not in a good neighborhood. You'd be surprised, like, bro.
Rent's expensive everywhere. It seems like
rent,
you can be in Buffalo,
the last place
Cleveland, Ohio. Now it's expensive.
Yeah, exactly. But we were talking.
That's a whole other discussion, economic discussion we can have another time. It's freaking insane.
I was making.
You got to break the formula, or else you're just gonna become a wage slave brokey. I just have to say that. It's just tough out there. No, it's tough. It's literally tough out there. Anyways, keep going.
But by the end of that year, physically, mentally, the worst, like one of the worst states I've ever been in, because I was just working myself to death, basically. It eventually got so bad to the point where I was starting to have like physical symptoms, like these pains. I'm not going to get into detail, but I had to like go to the doctor because it was so bad, and I was trying to figure out what it was. And it was only until I like really analyzed my life and realized posting twice a week, editing.
Wow. You're posting twice a week.
Yeah, for a while. And I was like editing 10 hours a day. And then any day I wasn't editing, I was like writing 8 hours a day and then recording that day, and like literally just a machine pumping out content, neglecting my health. Even though I was lifting and like eating healthy, like I still wasn't healthy. Like I was not sleeping well. Just no recovery time whatsoever.
Too much coffee.
So much, not even caffeine. I was just so stressed and anxious all the time. So much anxiety and stress over the next video, and how do I top this one? And I was obsessed, and it got to the point where like I literally had to stop YouTube. I had to stop in order to fix this. It got that bad. And so
you took a break.
I did. Right before I went to Austin in February 2022, in January, I took the whole month off of January posting because I reached an absolute like breaking point. Not the sort of breaking point that totally changed my success in life, like the girlfriend breaking up in COVID was, but a breaking point of like, I'm mentally unwell right now. Like I'm going to the doctor because of these physical pains I'm having. I'm like, I remember the last day, that was the last straw for me. Whenever I have like something going on that I can't figure out, that I think I need some sort of external help from, and I'm just going through a tough time, I usually like turn to like psychedelics for it. So mushrooms and LSD, I've done a few times. And so I took, it wasn't that much, like 2 grams of mushrooms. And that was like the only time I've had kind of a sort of bad trip ever from psychedelics. And I was like freaking out about continuing YouTube. And I was questioning whether I really wanted to be a YouTuber.
What happened during that trip that made you feel that you had to stop YouTube? It was like a nightmare.
It just made me like overthink even more and like exacerbated my issues and didn't provide solutions. And instead I was just thinking like, the biggest thing was like, I don't want all this attention on me. There's so many eyes on me and I feel so pressured all the time. I can't handle it. Like I almost wanted to just like run away and just live a normal life. Go back to living normal life. I couldn't stand it. And so I'm like, okay, before we do anything extremely drastic here, post a video saying I'm done, I'm quitting YouTube, let's take a month off and reevaluate. So after that breaking point, taking the month off, I realized, why did I have those thoughts? I was outrageously burnt out. That was the only reason. And I wanted to continue doing YouTube. And I knew that going to Austin was the next step for me. And it would be the right thing to do. And things would figure themselves out from there. Just take this month off, then go to Austin and start up YouTube again and find out how to live a much more balanced life. And Austin definitely allowed me to figure that out. And yeah, it's been, ever since I moved to Austin, everything's just been great. Amazing.
So when was that? That was, you said March?
February 2022.
February 2022. Weather might have been an issue too. In Buffalo, the winters are brutal.
Dude,
might have been part of it.
That's part of it. And just partly me not going outside also and not seeing friends as much. But yeah, weather is definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, I see that issue with a lot of entrepreneurs and probably creators as well, where it's a type of job, if we could call it that, where there's no end.
Yeah.
You can just keep, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a startup, you just can keep working and working. There's no 9 to 5.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing about 9 to 5 is it gives you the certainty of you go in 9, you get out at 5 pretty much. Some jobs are obviously more. And you have that community, you have that structure. But with entrepreneurship and being a creator, it can feel extremely lonely. There's a lot of work. Yeah. And you can, it's kind of, you push it, especially if you're a perfectionist, you're going to keep pushing. Yeah. And I'm speaking from personal experience. Like I've been through that. I think I probably hit a burnout pretty similar to you around early 2022 with my other business I was working on. Yeah. So I can understand where you're coming from there.
Unfortunate thing is for people who are very hungry to achieve things and they feel like they need to prove themselves, it's like it has to get to that point where you physically can't work anymore in order to stop. And so like avoiding burnout, if you're that type of person, I don't know. It's almost like you got to get to that point at least once to like realize how to not burn out again. It's like unavoidable for that to happen at least once.
So I'm actually really curious about this for people that might be experiencing this today. I'm sure there's a lot of people. So you took a month off in January or February 2022. Before taking that month off, you had doctors reviewing, you had pain issues, you had a lot of different things you didn't want to get into. After that month, were you good?
There was some lingering pain.
Yeah.
And I'll say it was like in my groin area. That's why I don't want to like get into the details. But it
like was UTI type stuff.
Dude, like it wasn't though. I thought it was.
Yeah.
And like I even got like tested for STDs potentially.
Okay.
But it wasn't. It was a totally. It was something called pelvic pain syndrome.
Okay.
It's when your pelvic muscles. These are your muscles, like between.
No, go into it. Yeah, it's real.
Asshole,
okay.
Like your gooch. That's where your pelvic muscles are.
Yeah, no, it's real.
Mine were so tightened all the time from stress and sitting too much that like my balls literally like hurt. So that's why I thought I had an STD, but I got tested. I didn't. So that's when I really started freaking out because like if it's not an STD. What the
What
fuck
is it?
And so it was this pelvic pain syndrome. I had to do like these. The way I got over it was obviously reducing stress, walking more, sleeping more, and then a lot of different yoga poses to like open up and stretch like those types of muscles, like my hips specifically. Like doing a lot of that and like releasing the tension down there. The pain went away completely, but it took a few months to get there. So a few months into Austin is when like things started balancing out for me in that way. Yeah, that was all the things that I really did. Just getting outside more, walking more. Then I met my girlfriend at that time, and you know, I spent less time working, more time focusing on my girlfriend, which really helped, seeing her like once a week at least. Just finding more things to do outside of work.
Yes.
And then also prioritizing like, oh, if this video is going to take an extra day, but I'll be able to go to sleep at 12 instead of 3 a.m., that's fine. Like reminding myself of that. So adopting that sort of mentality as well. So I never like pushed myself past even 90%. It's like I always had a little bit left in the tank at the end of the day, so I would feel fully recovered the next day.
After that experience, you learned.
Yeah.
You learned what your limits were.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's been better because it's been 2 years since then, pretty much. It's been a lot better.
Way better.
And you're still putting out a ton of content.
Yeah. I would say not as much. Definitely not as much for it's 2 videos a week. But yeah, it's about 1 video a week now, and I stopped posting on Instagram pretty much. Maybe I'll get back into that, but I kind of just post whenever I want to on Instagram.
Yeah.
I have that privilege now. I've gotten to the point where like financially I feel comfortable enough to where like, okay, I can just focus on YouTube, and the sponsorships are good, and the course I have as well, and the community I have allows me to like take my foot off the gas pedal a little bit as much. It's like, okay, you've made it in a sense. You can stop working yourself to death. But I think people can adopt that same sort of mentality even if they're not where they want to be.
Right.
I think they should, honestly, because then they'll avoid what I went through, and they won't have to take a month off YouTube or question whether what they're doing is right or not.
Do you think that that's a necessary stage of anyone that's trying to establish themselves, whether a venture, content?
Is like burning out like that?
Not burning out, but being under that intense pressure and really just putting in output. Because I think we know a mutual friend that also went through that period where you just output, putting out crazy videos, and then might be coasting a bit more now because he's kind of established himself.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's hard if you're really obsessed and passionate about what you do. It's hard to not want to, and I think you'll just naturally go through that.
Yeah,
but I don't. Yeah, that's a question I've been asking myself. Was all that really necessary to become who I am now and to reach the level of success I'm at now? Like, did I really need to, like I said, like fucking destroy my mentality for a few months just so I could make a lot of money? Like, or would I be pretty much at the same stage that I'm at now, success-wise, if I didn't go that hard? I don't really know the answer to that question. I think I still would have been pretty much at the same stage, though, if I didn't. Like you can still obsess over things and be super passionate about them, but you have to balance that with tons of recovery. If you're going to go that hard, you got to recover really hard, like more than most people. You got to sleep longer than most people, probably. You got to get outside more than most people. Like, you have to have a lot more recovery involved in your process if you want to obsess over your work that hard.
Your videos talk a lot about, you know, a word Jordan Peterson would say often in our society, nihilism or meaninglessness. Meaninglessness that we feel in our lives, and meaninglessness is that we feel perhaps as a generation that characterizes this generation, whether it be Gen Z, millennials, etc. how has your experience of going through burnout and potentially mental health issues, how did that kind of feed into these types of content that you're putting out? And how do you think that's connected with your audience? I know it's a lot to say, but
how nihilism.
Yeah. Or do you even agree with what I'm saying? Yeah. Do you even agree with what I'm saying?
Is nihilism connected with my burnout? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. And then also the content, some of the content that you put out as well. Or maybe you disagree.
I think my burnout definitely wasn't a result of nihilism. I think I thought what I was doing was very meaningful. Yeah, I'm not sure. And the other part was how it's related to content, you're saying? In what way?
It seems like that's a theme in some of your content,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe I'm just observing that incorrectly.
No, I think.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out, where does that come from? Like whether in our society, whether something in your life, something you're observing.
Yeah, I think for a long time I had the idea of like nothing really matters and I'm just going to be an average person. Like I was very convinced the majority of my life that I was like the most average person ever.
So you're just going to be an NPC?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And like I was never going to do anything exceptional. Like every sport I played, I was pretty good. Not super bad, but not super good. Every class, it's like, okay, I'm pretty good. It's like everything was just good enough. And so it's like, okay, this is my life. It's just an average life. I'm destined to be average. There's not much more meaning to it at all. It's like, I don't know. Nothing really matters. And then I think that influenced my content, but also just seeing how many comments I get about nihilistic thoughts and how nothing matters and how there's such a crisis of meaninglessness in modern society amongst young people now that we move farther away from religion, and it's hard to feel like things have meaning when you're being fed news all the time that the world is basically ending and you know every bad thing that's going on in the world. And so you think like, what's the point of even doing anything positive if everything's just going to go to shit anyways? So yeah, I think that all influences it. I think it's just a big theme amongst young people right now.
With all of the technological advances that our generation has now, with the iPhones we have, with the texting, with everything that we have, do you think that something has also been lost in our generation compared to previous generations, even though we've gained so much?
Yeah, that's important to point out. We have gained a whole lot. I mean,
YouTube itself, YouTube.
You can learn anything and monetize basically anything you want and make a career out of it at this point.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Easiest time ever to BTF, break the formula.
Yeah, incredible.
But have we lost something?
I think one of the biggest things is trust. I think there's a decreasing amount of trust within society because, we're so connected that everyone expects everybody to live a certain type of lifestyle like that's being portrayed online. But then also it's like, if your friend doesn't text you back right away, it's like, does that mean they don't like me? And then you look up content about it. It's like, it's saying all these negative things like, oh, you should just get rid of your friends because they don't really like you. And it's like, you're questioning everything because you're constantly being fed all of these different sources of information and opinions. And so it's like, who do I trust? It's like, what do I listen to? I don't trust any of it. So I think, yeah, that's a big thing, is the decrease in trust amongst people. There's just like this lingering sense of like, this person is acting this way, but on the inside, I feel like they're up to something fishy. And it's like, there's less of a, real life connection when you realize people in real life are actually just not nearly as bad as some of their online profiles are, and they wouldn't say a lot of the things that they say online in person. Then you start to like reconnect with what reality is really like. But the online world is starting to become more like the real world. We're seeing it spill into the real world now, which is, it's concerning in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think one of the biggest things is like trust that we've lost, and just face-to-face connection, which fuels social skills. Social skills within young people are probably worse now. I would say they have to be, if we're constantly staring at a screen and interacting online instead of in person. Like, you talk to some really young people, you'll kind of see the difference. And maybe that's just because they're young, right? And like when I was young, I was fucking awkward and I was socially awkward and whatnot. But if they never learn, if they stay closed off and they're not going outside and going to events and going to social gatherings as often, like that must have some sort of impact later down the line in life. And so less people are going to have that ability to socialize really well and be really charismatic in person, which will obviously cause a lot of problems, I think, as well. So yeah, those are two really big things: trust, decrease in trust between people, and lack of social skills.
Decrease in trust, decrease in connection as well.
Yeah.
Maybe not having genuine connections.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. So are you pessimistic about our generation? Like, when you see where society's going, does that make you feel sad?
I don't think so.
Not really?
I don't know. I so many people are so pessimistic online, but
yeah,
I see.
You seem very stoic. You're a very stoic person.
Yeah. The positive side of everything is like, I don't know. We have access to so many different cultures and information now, and we can take in so many different viewpoints. And while that does leave you very confused and maybe divisive, because you start to adopt a certain tribe mentality that you find online, and that pins you against other people. The other side of that is, if you can remain open-minded amongst all this information, you can realize that, oh, everybody has their own perspective on life based on what they've experienced in their life so far. And so the reason you disagree with someone is because, you can say, okay, it's probably because they grew up with these sort of parents, they grew up in this sort of culture, I've learned about all these things, and I'm going to accept that and not hate them for it. And so I think people will be much more open-minded in the future to differences amongst individuals. That's what I would hope. And I think that could grow into a world that just, I don't know, less hostile towards each other, more accepting of each other's differences. Online, it definitely doesn't seem that way. It seems worse. But in the real world, perhaps,
even in our own country, or in the USA, it doesn't seem like it's getting any better. It seems almost more polarized.
But I would say, I think most like Gen Z kids and Gen Alpha kids, I think they're like way more accepting of, I don't know, just people being different.
Yeah,
I feel like I've seen that trend, and that's what I focus on. I think that could be something really great that comes out of having access to everything at our fingertips.
What do you think differentiates your content versus all the other influencers and creators out there? Why is your channel consistently grown? You've talked about the quantity of work that you put out, but is there something specific about the topics you bring or your perspective that you think connects with viewers?
I think the biggest thing that made my channel blow up was the relatability of it. I'm just a dude who goes through life and tells stories that practically every young kid, especially young men, can relate to. And it's a lot of things that most people are afraid to open up about. So I'm very vulnerable on my channel. I talk about, like I've said in my videos, I think my viewers know more about me than my friends in real life do.
Wow.
Because I'm not afraid to say anything on my channel. And that vulnerableness, it attracts people because it's like, it feels like, oh, this is like a real guy. Like, this is a real dude who I could picture myself being friends with in real life, and he's like me. So that relatability, I think, really keeps people coming back. I also enjoy presenting topics in a very nuanced way within the self-improvement space. I think self-improvement can get really polarizing, where it's this sort of tribalist mentality of, once you're in self-improvement, everybody says, this is how you do self-improvement. You take the cold showers, you wake up at 8 a.m., like the red pill, the way they talk about women. It's like there's this very set structure. If you don't do that, then you're a blue-pilled beta simp, idiot, fucking loser. To me, I'm like, okay, well, you know, there's some truth to that, but like, let's look at how self-improvement can be expressed in different ways, because it can be expressed in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different lifestyles that are related to self-improvement. There's no one way to do it. And so I think that's kind of a fresh perspective amongst most self-improvement content, which usually is very polarizing.
What do you mean by that, polarizing?
Polarizing is like, it's either my way or no way. Like, you have to do this or you are this. For me, it's like, I'm giving you an option here. You could do this, but also there's this way. And if you don't do the way that I'm presenting here, that's okay. I totally understand. And then there's also like, you know, you make a claim, something like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example. A claim of, let's say, if you don't do NoFap, or if you relapse, you've lost all your progress, or you're like, if you FAP all the time,
yep,
you are going to be less motivated and less confident. It's like, for me, I would say in my videos, well, maybe that's the case for some people, but other people can FAP every single day and they feel totally fine. So that's what I mean by being less polarizing. It's like, it's less black and white on my channel. It's more in the gray area, like trying to see all the perspectives of it. And then I try to improve the quality with each video. It's not every video, I don't think, but I've invested a lot into my equipment, and I really enjoy cinematography and filmmaking. I'm trying to get more into it, be better at it, and I take a lot of my own B-roll, which I think stands
How do you take
out.
that B-roll? I noticed there's a lot of your B-roll of you just walking down a path.
Yeah.
Or
I'll just set
you
up
like
tripod.
on a patio, and like, who's doing that? Is that just you?
Yeah, I'll just set up a tripod, just put it down.
And you're just walking
just
around.
walk.
Yeah.
Just look like an idiot in front of people. And you just, I don't know, you stop caring after a while. I still get like a little, I feel awkward and like, these people are probably judging me, but it's like, I've accepted that I'm going to feel a little awkward no matter what. If I'm around a bunch of people and I'm putting a camera down, like walking by it, I look like a fucking weirdo. It's like, just got to accept that. But yeah, it's mostly me.
That's impressive. That's really cool how you're able to do that. Yeah. So I guess, you know, you've done all this content, you focus on better quality. What is it that you're trying to help your viewer? Like, what are you trying to tell your viewer? Do you care about your viewer? Do you have a picture in your head of who this viewer is? And like, what advice are you trying to give that viewer through your content? Or is it all just about money?
I think
Is it all just about views and money and sponsorships?
that's the thing I care least about. I think I would be making videos regardless of if I was being paid or not. Like, if money was not a thing, I would still be making videos pretty much the same way that I am now. So I think the biggest thing for me, my demographic shows me that the people that resonate with my content most is young men. But I think a lot of women watch my content, but it's for people who, they just have, like, everybody has way more potential than they think. And I know this because I was the guy who thought he was destined to be average and was socially awkward and didn't fit in all these things. And then I actualized my potential and changed my beliefs that have been built by all of these people trying to tell me what I should do and who I was. And once you transform yourself like that, it's like, I know everybody else is capable of this, so why not just make people realize that? And so the biggest thing is helping. It's usually young people that need that message. And my biggest goal is just, I want people to feel after they watch one of my videos is just that life is a bit more enjoyable now. That's the biggest thing. It's like after you watch one of my videos, I just want you to enjoy life a bit more after watching it. It's kind of a broad goal, but yeah.
So enjoy life, not improve their life, not this, but it's actually just enjoy it.
Yeah, and usually that's improvement.
Right.
Sometimes it's about self-acceptance, which I talk about as well, which is doing nothing to improve, but just accepting who you are right now. It's just like, yeah, I want you to just sometimes feel motivated, sometimes feel like, oh, I'm fine the way I am. And there's actually nothing wrong with me, and life is actually pretty great. That's how I want people to feel after they watch one of my videos.
Was there a point in your life where you felt that you weren't enough, and that's part of the reason why you want others to realize that, to have self-acceptance?
Oh yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Vast majority of my life felt like I wasn't good enough. Yeah, I mean, even now I'm still insecure about things, and I still sometimes I can tell that there's parts of me that I don't love, and I don't love myself fully, because if I did, I think every moment would feel like bliss, perhaps. But I know there's still work to do, and that there will always be work to do, and I'll always be uncovering new things about myself as I go throughout life. And that's the fun part, man. It's knowing that there's always going to be a process to go through, and some sort of thing to uncover about oneself, and that you're constantly becoming something, that life is a constant state of becoming. That's fun. That gets me going. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely gotten better at not feeling good enough through self-improvement. There's still more work to do, and there always will be.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and that's so true. Self-improvement, it's a constant uphill battle, but also that's what makes it exciting.
It's the Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill. The myth of Sisyphus. You know that book?
I've heard of it, but tell us more about it.
Yeah, it's like an ancient, I want to say like Greek myth of a guy named Sisyphus who does some bad things, and I'm pretty sure like one of the Greek gods commands him to push a boulder up a hill for the rest of his life. He's just pushing a boulder up a never-ending hill. And yeah, that's kind of what life is. It's like you're just pushing a boulder up a hill that never ends, and you'll never see the end of it until basically you die. And you got to learn to love that. You have to, as they say, what the fuck is his name? Albert Camus says in The Myth of Sisyphus, which is a book all about like why do anything at all and struggling with finding meaning. He references the myth of Sisyphus, and he says one must imagine Sisyphus happy. So it's just you have to enjoy the fact that you're going to be pushing a boulder up a never-ending hill for the rest of your life. You have to find a way to fall in love with that. So
even with 650,000 X subscribers, and how much do you think you'll make in revenue from the channel this year?
From the channel?
Yeah, this past year.
Like total
income. Like what do you think you're at? If you don't mind sharing.
Last year,
yeah,
probably a little over a couple 100,000.
Yeah, so you're making a good income. You've got X, 600. You're on your way to 1 million subscribers at some point, but you're saying you still feel like you have to push yourself up this hill.
Right.
It's like you never arrive, basically, is what you're saying.
No, once you get to this level, you realize there's no destination. There's no finish line. It's all just like you hit a numeric goal, like let's say 100,000 subscribers. This is when I really first realized it, and you realize, okay, what's next? 1 million. Okay, let's do it. And then once I get to 1 million, it's gonna be like, okay, what's next? What other process can I do that I'll fall in love with? I don't know, becoming a filmmaker. It's just, I don't know. It's like that's what makes life fun, is the processes, not getting somewhere. Once you get there, it's like, it's cool for like a week and then it wears off. What really feels good is like when I'm in the middle of like of a video, and I know this is in the middle of a bigger picture of getting to 1 million subscribers, it's like, this is it. I'm here. Every moment is here. It is that finish line that I thought was going to change my life for me. No, that's every single moment that I'm in the process.
I know exactly what you're saying there. It's like every step in the process towards the goal, that's where you can achieve those.
That is the goal.
Exactly. That's where you can achieve those moments of flow and bliss. Like, you know, I just remember when I ran my first marathon. I've only done 2 kind of technically, but my first marathon, actually doing the marathon was okay. It was cool.
Yeah.
I did it in Banff National Park in Canada. But really for me, like some of the greatest moments were actually some of the training runs that I did when I was working in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And I'd be running by the lake and just doing like a long run and just seeing the sunrise and the lake beside me or the river beside me and just doing that and being like, wow, like this is so beautiful. Like those are some of the moments.
That's it.
Or within entrepreneurship, you know, we sold our business 2022, but the actual day, we actually took the company public, then we sold it on the Toronto Stock Exchange. But it was the moments actually leading up to the event that were the more meaningful parts.
Oh, yeah.
Hanging out in the warehouse with our employees, working on problem solving,
Yeah.
meeting with customers and distributors, shaking their hand, taking them for dinner, closing deals. Like every step along the way in those experiences were what was most meaningful for me and not the actual end result. After the end result, I just felt depressed.
Yeah.
So it's so weird how life's like that.
often happens too.
Yeah.
The best way to get over that, just start a new process. Just start a new boulder.
So I guess, Cole, like, you know, we're entering 2024. What are some of the biggest things you want to work on, whether in your personal life or your channel and your business over the next coming year? Because you also mentioned that 2023 was, you said something like it was a bad year or something like that. You put a post on YouTube. So I wanted to hear about that. And was that just like clickbait or was that like...
It was a little bit of clickbait.
Okay, some clickbait, okay.
I said like I failed 2023.
Yes.
That's what it looked like.
And you said you were trying to wake up at 8 a.m. and you didn't and stuff like that.
If you review all my 2023 goals, it's like wake up at 8 a.m., start studying Japanese again, get to 10,000 newsletter subscribers, post 1 podcast a month, and do 1 form of cardio per week. And I only did the cardio per week. So I actually only did 1 of 5 of those goals.
And you were supposed to hit 1 million subs.
Right.
On YouTube.
Yes, that was one of them too.
Yeah.
1 million subs.
What happened, dude?
Life happened. But
you're such a failure, Cole.
Then I reflected on 2023. I was like, dude, I was so happy. That was like one of the most fulfilled years I ever felt, and like I was so at peace. And I realized that like I'm like for 2024, I have goals, but like I'm done chasing numbers completely. It's like, I don't know, getting a certain amount of views per video that I used to want at least 100,000 views per video. If that happens, awesome. If it doesn't, that's totally okay. If I hit 1 million subscribers this year, awesome, but I'm not going to set it as a goal. Like I'm more so focused on like, how do I want to feel every single day? That's the biggest thing for me. And I want to do the things that I know are good for me, that I naturally feel drawn towards now. This theme of effortless growth that we were talking about before the podcast. I think I'm just naturally at a point where growth is something like I like myself so like I do really like myself. I'm at a point where I mostly only want to do good things for myself. And so what I naturally feel drawn towards is things that help me improve. And so like whatever I feel like naturally I'm drawn towards, and I'm not forcing it super hard and grinding super hard like 2021 when I was having all those symptoms. It's like, let's do that. Like, let's just, I don't know. It's like everything I do on a daily basis, you look at it and be like, wow, that's a lot of work. And it's like, to me, it's like, that's what I feel naturally drawn towards right now. Just going to effortlessly do that. And we'll see what comes out of that. I'll just focus on the systems, the habits that I do, whatever feels naturally right this year for me. And let's see what numbers we get. Not try to reverse engineer it and say, this is the number I want to hit. How do we get there? That's not my thing. It's like whatever number I get from naturally doing the things that I feel drawn towards this year, that's what I'm going to do. And that's it. And for me right now, just started marathon training, which is the marathon is in May. I know I'm going to, like you said, enjoy the process of that very much. It's really fun.
In Buffalo, right?
Yeah, the marathon in Buffalo in May, end of May.
I might join you. I might know someone else that may want to as well, because that's
if you
actually.
Want to run with me? you might.
We might get a crew out there.
I don't know what your times were in your marathons, but
I'm around 4 hours too, so I'm nothing crazy.
So sub 4 is the goal.
Yeah,
I know that. I'm like this fucking close to booking a ticket to Japan for fall, and when that happens, again, my mind's gonna switch like it did
to learning Japanese.
Yes, for marathon training, it's like, oh, I signed up for a marathon. Okay, it's time to train. Oh, I booked a flight to Japan. Time to start studying again, because I did it for a while, a couple of years ago, but I stopped for a while. So that's something like I feel drawn towards right now. It's something that would be a nice, fun challenge that would induce growth within me. I feel drawn towards it. I feel it within me that I should do that. There's signs that I should do it. And then as for other things, yeah, I have a few other goals written down, but like we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what I'm drawn towards. That's the biggest theme.
So my last question, Cole, for you, and thank you again for your time. It's been such a pleasure. Is you've written a book called The Middle Way, and you've created a course for your viewers or for people on self-mastery.
Yes.
And what do those words mean to you, and why?
The middle way.
The middle way and self-mastery. How do those connect? What does that mean to you? Why did you write about those things?
The middle way, that was at a much different point in my life, but I still kind of live by that, where there's a way to use laziness and boredom to fuel your creative process and your grind, really. If you can balance complete boredom and nothingness and doing nothing with a lot of work, like that's the middle way to me. And it's funny because now, like, I've realized my content for a long time on my channel has been kind of the middle way embodied, is this nuanced, in the gray area self-improvement. So that's kind of what I live by, is this middle way. It's not black and white. It's not this way or that way. It's like, find that balance and find the different perspectives. So I guess that's what that means. And self-mastery to me is that continual process of just becoming and continuously getting to a better state of understanding oneself, understanding why certain things trigger you, why you are drawn towards certain things, where different emotions are stored in your body, and learning how to accept them and harness them, developing your own life philosophy, building an identity that you're proud of. It is a very holistic experience, is what self-mastery is, and that's what the course is and what it teaches you. It's this holistic strengthening of self-awareness, building better habits, of developing your own life philosophy, and just feeling fulfilled. And every day you wake up and you're like excited to do more processes.
Well, Cole, thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome time. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Thank you again. We'll talk soon.